All right, good morning, everybody. We're off to an early start today. A lot of things in my head that were fresh, and I wanted to get this information out there because as the day goes on, sometimes you lose some of those thoughts, and the later you make the video, you may not get all the information out there. But this stuff is fresh in my head, so I want to put it out there. Let's jump right into this. Tank Davis versus Jake Paul event was pulled, and lots of people giving their opinions. And I want to point to one specific um, person or group of people, and that's Lou DiBella and Ariel Helwani. They had a great discussion yesterday about the event, and there's a bit of disagreement. You have some people saying that the live gate was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was one of the issues, if not one of the main issues, why the event was pulled. And I've heard Ariel say this, and shout out to Ring IQ. I heard him talk about this as well. And they're only telling you, in my opinion, half the story, right? Because yes, in fights like this, of course, the rights fee, not always, but in most cases, the rights fee will exceed the live gate, right? But the live gate does matter, right? The reason why the live gate matters is because the promoter will get the rights fee. But when you have an event like this, where the promoter has to pay himself, in this case, Jake Paul, and he has to pay Tank Davis, right? When you have gigantic purses, when you have Jake Paul reportedly getting 50 million, and Tank Davis was supposed to reportedly be getting 40 million. Now, if that's $90 million in purse, right? So as the promoter, you want the live gate to offset some of that because you're paying yourself. Jake Paul's paying himself. He's also paying Tank Davis, and he's also paying the undercard. He also has to, um, you know, a portion of the ticket sales goes to the commission costs, right? Athletic commission fees, venue costs, operations. So again, the ticket sales, if they're lagging, they're also an indication of how well the event is doing, how much buzz is behind the event. So Netflix recoups some of that money through the advertisement, right? They want viewership, and obviously they want people to pay for the ad spots on their events, sponsorships. People are going to pay sponsorships to be, they're going to sponsor the event as well. So that's how Netflix will recoup some of their money on the rights fee. But Jake Paul needed to recoup money too because again, he's paying himself, he's paying Tank Davis, and he's got to pay all those operation costs, those fees to the commission. So the ticket sales, in my opinion, were an indication of how poorly this event was doing, not only in ticket sales, but also there was no buzz. So I'm not so sure, right, that this event was going to get the viewership that a lot of people thought it was. And Netflix is saying to themselves, well, if we go ahead with this, maybe the advertisers are going some of the advertisers are going to pull back, right? Maybe some of the sponsorship people are going to pull back, and maybe we're not going to get these eyeballs that we anticipated we were going to get. So to sit there and say that this live gate means nothing, I'm not saying it means everything, but it does mean something, right? Because the promoter, if he's paying out large purses and he's got to pay out operation costs, fees to the commission, and all that, if all that money exceeds that live gate and exceeds the amount of rights fee, right? You can have the highest rights fee in the world, but if you're paying out exorbitant amounts of purses to yourself, the opponent, and the rest of the card, then again, I would guess that the rights fee was not enough alone to cover the purses and the cost for the event. And the live gate helps recoup some of those costs if you're a promoter. And I'm surprised Lou didn't push back on that when he was talking to Ariel Helwani, right? So yeah, Netflix doesn't want the negative publicity, but that negative publicity could possibly turn into advertisers pulling back on the event, sponsors pulling back on the event, and just overall portion of people could have been turned off by this. And Netflix is saying there's no buzz for this event. They're seeing the press conferences. This guy Tank Davis is bringing nothing to the table. So are we really going to get, number one, the viewers, because there's no buzz for the event, and the live gate is basically a precursor and an indicator of how well the event is doing in terms of people being interested in it. So if you see the live gate numbers tanking, a lot of times that's an indication of how well the buzz for the event is as well. So this was not guaranteed to get tons of viewership. And again, I reiterate, not to sound redundant, but we don't know what was going on behind the scenes with the advertisers and the sponsors, right? Because we saw, like, for instance, this is not an identical comparison, but when Dave Chappelle had all his controversy with the LGBTQ, and there were a lot of groups speaking out against him, um, Netflix still went ahead with the comedy show. They still paid him a ton of money, even with the blowback he was getting, because they realized that, you know what, in this case, controversy sells, right? But in the case of Tank Davis, I don't think controversy sold in this instance, because there was a lot of people who were already sour on the fight, right? So the live gate numbers could have been that last straw, the straw, excuse me, that broke the camel's back. So to sit there and just say that the live gate numbers meant nothing, I think was totally wrong, and I'm surprised Lou DiBella, knowing that the intricacies that go behind putting on an event. I'm surprised he didn't push back on that, right? Because as you notice in the statement, it was not just Netflix. Jake Paul was also on board with that too. So this was kind of like a group thing, and Jake Paul, as the promoter, knowing that he had to pay himself a ton of money, or he wanted to pay himself a ton of money. He wanted to pay Tank Davis a lot of money. He had to. So how does he recoup his costs, right? So that's the thing. So to just sit there and say that the live gate meant nothing, to sit there and say that there wasn't going to be a financial negative blowback with advertisers and sponsorships and viewership, to sit there and assume that just everyone was going to watch this regardless, because there was no buzz. And the live gate was telling the live gate numbers, or the ticket sales, were telling you that there was no buzz for this event. And and I agree with Lou DiBella, and I agree with a lot of people. If the ticket sales, if this, with I think about what, a week to go, if the ticket sales were 2/3, if the arena was 2/3 sold out at this point, or close to sold out at this point, then I believe they would have went ahead with the event, because that would have indicated to them that there's a buzz behind this event. But the ticket sales were telling them that people weren't interested in it. And this latest instance with Tank Davis was going to cause some type of blowback financially. So to sit there and say that, oh yeah, this had nothing to do with the ticket sales, no, that's bullshit. Because again, Netflix would have dealt with the aggravation if they knew that there wasn't going to be negative blowback with viewership, advertisement, and sponsorship. So these ticket sales were just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion, right? They know what's going on, right? They have smart people behind the scenes looking at metrics, looking at the online social media interaction, and then you had Tank Davis himself at one point shutting down his Twitter and Instagram. So this guy was bringing nothing to the table. So just to assume that this event was going to do well, right? Because Jake Paul was involved in it. No, they saw the writing on the wall, and the ticket sales were just only one of many metrics that they were using as as a barometer you just obviously see that this event had no buzz behind it. So they're saying to themselves, why are we going to deal with this aggravation with this guy? First of all, the guy was bringing nothing to the table. He was a terror to work with. I'm sure Jake Paul wasn't happy with it. And I'm sure if Jake Paul wanted to persuade Netflix, he could have had some type of influence on it, right? He could have had some type of influence on them, possibly. So if you have Jake Paul seeing how the ticket sales are doing horrible and seeing as how he needed some, he needed a cushion to kind of offset the purses and the fees and all that, right? So he was seeing that he was going to lose money on the event, right? So you don't think he went to Netflix and said, hey, listen, you don't think this was kind of like a joint thing? You think this was just Netflix themselves saying we don't want to do this, right? Because Netflix didn't come out with a statement. Jake Paul made the statement. Netflix didn't say anything, right? Netflix said nothing. It was Jake Paul that made the statement. So I think this was a collective decision. And I think that the ticket sales did mean something because, again, I will say if this event was close to sold out at this time, with that news being released, I do think the event would have went forth. But they just said to themselves, okay, people aren't really interested in this fight. And the ticket sales were an indicator of that, right? So I don't want to keep going on with this, but Ariel Helwani, he's like, oh well, the rights fee. Okay, yeah, okay, but again, the promoter takes that rights fee and has to pay the rest. Him, if he in this case he's the fighter, so he has to pay himself. He has to pay Tank Davis, and then he has to pay the rest of the card. He's got to pay the cushion fees. He's got to pay the operation cost. So when you factor all that in, was that rights fee enough to cover all those things? And the major source of recouping that was the live gate for the promoter. And Lou knows this, and I'm surprised he didn't push back on this, right? And also, when you have a subscription service like Netflix, they make money not only on their subscribers, but their advertisement. And if advertisers were going to pull back, sponsors were going to pull back, if they felt that the metrics weren't on their side and people weren't going to watch this and they weren't going to, and the advertisers were seeing that this could potentially bomb, right, in terms of viewership, then everyone's looking at this and saying this is a net negative across the board. Why are we going to move ahead? So yes, the live gate meant something because it was an indication of how well this event was doing in terms of attention, right? There was no buzz behind it, and I think this this instance right now would have killed the buzz even more. This was just the that little bit that pushed it over the edge, right? So yes, the live gate meant something because it was a confirmation that this event had no buzz behind it. So to sit there and say that this was not a financial decision at all, I disagree with that. All right, guys, that's all I got to say. Keep it short and sweet today. I'm not going to go on a diatribe about this, but you got to break it down. The live gate does mean something, and again, the rights fee is not the be all end all, because if you are paying the main event, if the main event is top heavy like it was against Canelo Crawford, you think Turkey Al Sheikh made money off that event? You think the rights fee that Turkey Al Sheikh got and that live gate, even as high as it was, if he's paying out $210 million in purses, I can almost guarantee you, in my opinion, I don't even think it's a question, that Turkey Al Sheikh and that Canelo Crawford fight lost anywhere from 40 to $50 million because, again, rights fee can be great, but in a lot of cases, the promoter is taking a gamble. If he's paying high purses, he's hoping to recoup that money from the live gate. So the live gate means a lot to the promoter. Okay. Now, if the promoter's not putting up a ton, if the promoter gets a huge rights fee and he's not paying out a ton of money in purses, then okay, yeah, then he's not taking as big a risk on the live gate. But Jake Paul was taking a risk going forward with this fight financially, right? So let's just look at the big picture. The live gate means something here. It meant something here to the promoter, right? It meant something to the promoter. And we still do not know behind the scenes what people, what the advertisers and what people involved in this event were communicating to Netflix. All right, guys. Beaver's out. Talk to y'all soon. Have a great day. And we'll see you soon. Make sure you check out the Ringside Reporter podcast every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Beaver's out. Take care.